Hello, good evening, and welcome to my Liverpool life with the LFC Daytrippers. This is a show that we've been trying to get off the ground now for a while, and we're going through the ups and downs. Last week we got it started when Stroh came on very late, and this week I said, just to get us up and running, who can we get on? And there's no better guest to talk about their Liverpool life than the very main man, Gav Doyle himself. Gav, how are you?
I'm good. I played golf today. I played out my skin. I'm absolutely delighted. And
Breaking
now I'm ready.
records.
I shot 79 today, which is 8 over par.
Doesn't sound good. Is that good?
No, that's
I'm not a
good. Yeah,
golfer.
that's good. Yeah. I'd average probably somewhere in the mid 80s. But no, 79 today. So yeah, I was delighted. Unfortunately, it wasn't in competition; it was only in practice. But I marked the card, and I've told loads of people about it because it won't happen again for a long, long time. I don't think.
There you go.
There you
So,
go.
not only is he a podcast expert, a football expert, he also knows how to bend the rules at golf and cheat the cards, which
Yeah,
is always good.
yeah,
It's a good trait to have.
yeah.
Um,
I'm not too
but
sure with the force bit, but definitely bending the rules in golf. Yeah, it's definitely. No, genuinely, it was one of those rounds where it just everything went right, but it doesn't
yeah,
happen very often.
excellent. Great to hear. So you're in a good mood. So just for people, what this show is about, it's just having a guest on every week and just talking about their love for Liverpool, love for the Reds, how they got into it, and their sort of favourite moments throughout the years, favourite players and things like that. So before we start, Gav, we start running the competition last night. Is there any updates on that, or do we need to add anything to that for tonight?
Yeah, we started running the competition last night because just before we went live, I think, wasn't it? Or before you went live last night, it just creeped over 2,000. It's still going.
Yeah.
It's motoring away there today. I think there's another couple of subscribers in there. What we done was, after the show last night, people were invited to go into the comments as opposed to the live comments. Into the comments, put their name in. Type in 3 Retro and put their Twitter handle beside it. For the simple reason is, everyone that does that, we'll take a list of it. We'll check with 3 Retro that they are all following 3 Retro. Then we put them in a hat and we'll do a draw. There's probably a dozen or so people in there, but we'll extend that out till tomorrow at noon. Tomorrow at noon, I will take the list and bring it to 3 Retro, and then on the show tomorrow night we will do a random draw for the winner.
Excellent. So anyone that's listening, there's still chances if you haven't entered the competition, get stuck in. It's not going to take much. And it's a great prize to be winning, So yeah, happy days. We'll remind you all again as the show goes on, as I'm sure the numbers will creep up for the people who are listening. So that's great. It's a great prize actually. It's good to get those sort of things on there. But we'll get back to the business at hand here, Gav.
Right.
Liverpool. What does Liverpool mean to you?
An awful lot. 38 years of age, 34 of them I can remember as a Liverpool fan. Some ups, loads of downs, and at the moment you're watching the best Liverpool side you've ever seen. There's no doubt in my mind. I said it, I've said this many times. The team that have kind of emerged since 2016-ish up until now, I always said when they put a league title on the table, because of the way they played, because of the entertainment, and just the way they go about their business, they will go down as the best Liverpool side I've seen. They eclipse 87-88 now for me. 87-88 they were outrageous, and we'll get to them later on. But this side now, I think, is just, it's a different gravy. It's a different machine. When you have centre halves heading the ball to themselves, because there's a forward in the way, and you have Salah turning around, and in 140 odd games he's been involved in 100 goals. There's just so many superlatives to write about this side. Now 87-88 was similar. I want to go into them in a little bit of detail later, but 34 years, and I wouldn't swap it. I'm being honest with you, I wouldn't swap it.
Yeah, And we're around the same age. I'm a year older than you, but the same sort of time scale, you know. It's I grew up as well on that 87, 88 team. I had the videos, you know, all that sort of stuff. My dad had all that, and that was the best. That was the pinnacle. You know, we had the full match of the Nottingham Forest 5-0, and my old man would be like, that's, you know, football perfection. But this came along, and you're spot on what you said there. This team had to start putting prizes on the table to be in the equation, and people were afraid to put them in there, weren't they, until they could get the big ones, the big medals on the tables. And now they've done it, it sort of changes the landscape of Liverpool.
It does. It does. I was on the football terrace with Terry a couple of weeks ago, and he was asking, is this Liverpool side a great side? And I said, like, you know, you win a league, they're a great side. You can look at a great side in different ways. You know, I've seen great sides that haven't won an awful lot, but they've been great sides because they're great to watch. But this one, yeah, the league is the one. You know, you can win a European Cup, you can win a UEFA Cup, or a Cup Winners' Cup that used to be there. You can win League Cups, FA Cups, but the league is the one. 38 games, over 9 months, and that's what sets you apart, and that's what sets these apart right now, I think.
Yeah, it really does, and it's you know, it's something that was used to beat us for long enough as well. You know, the Champions League wins would be discredited because you're not winning the league, and now we're winning the league. They tried to discredit that as well, you know, but there really can't be an argument. You know, Liverpool were brought up on league titles and, you know, and European Cups, in fairness. You know, we were spoiled in that sort of regard, but you want to see them dominating over the 38-game season. And last season was actually, you know, we didn't win the league last season, but the foundation that it laid was special for what we got over the line this year, you know, and that's a testament to what Klopp has done there, and the mentality is installed into that team. And we're going to talk about, it's great that we can bookend the 87-88 team and this team, because there was a lot of shit in between. Now there was some good teams in between.
There was loads of it. Yeah, there was loads of it. There was loads. You're probably going to ask me this, but I'll tell you anyway. My first memory of Liverpool was the 86 Cup final.
Next question.
You see, we're like, I don't know what we're like. We're like Toshak and Keegan, I suppose. If we turn back to back, we'd be able to tell each other what colour we're looking at. But 86 Cup final, I was 2 or 3 months over me. No, wasn't 2 months over me 4th birthday, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I remember the whole day. I remember, like, when you look at the 92 Cup final against Sunderland, I remember the whole day because it was a big thing, the FA Cup. Like, for people that are a bit younger than us and probably watching, even if you're only watching the FA Cup for the last 20 years, it's a lot different than it was 30 years ago. 30 years ago, it literally started at 9 o'clock in the morning, and there was 6 hours of coverage.
The whole day, wasn't it? The whole day was football. It was the best day of the football year, in fairness.
It was the showpiece. That's why it was called the showpiece. It was literally 9 o'clock BBC come on, and it just went on all fucking day. And you got 6 hours of coverage. You got the match for 2 hours, could be 2.5 if there was extra time, and then it probably went on till whatever time when they were doing analysis. Now the analysis isn't what it was like today. It was basically show the goals a couple of times, get loads of interviews with people around the place, and then everyone went about their business. The 86 Cup final for me, I remember it because. And a lot of people will say this, but it's Rush hitting the camera, and I was mesmerised by that. And it was only, a couple of years later when you get the history of Liverpool, the VHS now. No, there wasn't DVDs at this time, but there was a VHS that came out. I'm going to say around.
There was a BBC one, wasn't it?
There was a couple that came out, but the official history one, I literally knew it from
VHS as well.
Yeah, I literally knew from start to finish all the commentary of all the games from the 60s because you watched it so many times. But the big thing that stood out to me was, the third goal for Liverpool, and it's only when I watched it years later on the VHS that the kind of memories that you have there, they flood back, and it's Rush hitting the camera, but the build up of that goal is Moby in midfield that gets it, and he plays at the wheeling, and John Watson's words are always say, and you always remember that if you go back and watch it, and you get it on YouTube, but it's always say and wheeling's away, and he clips it to Rush, and Rush scores, but but just. Wembley in the sun, all that sort of thing. And like, I done well to become over as a Liverpool fan because, I have big families on both sides of my family. Like there's 13 in my father's family, there was 14 in my mother's. I think out of the 7 men in my mother's side, there was 5 Liverpool fans, 1 Leeds and 1 United. They were all United on my father's side, and he tried his best for me to become a United fan. You know, I had a bedroom with my brother, and he would put Man United posters up, and you're like, what the fuck is it? Now my brother liked football, but never really pinned himself to a side. You know, he liked Leeds for a while, and then he liked Newcastle. And if you ask him now, he just goes, "No, I'm not bothered." You know, he just watches football for the sake of watching football. But my dad tried hard, but it was never going to work, because you see, I was closer to my mother's side. They lived closer to me, and one of my uncles was only 4 years older than me. So you know what he was doing, you could relate to. So when it came down to it, it was always going to be Liverpool. And as I said, I wouldn't change it. But you're right. Your first memory is 86, and then of course 87, 88, Hillsborough. Big memories of that, and we'll get to that in a bit, I'd say, as well. But and then of course you win the title the following year, and then the bullshit starts. Let's be honest.
It does indeed, and it's again, you know, I relate to all that myself. It was always going back to the FA Cup final day. You know, it was 3 o'clock kickoff. It was traditional. Abide with me would be on, all that, and it was a full day in itself. And a lot of the time, I know down my way, the communions would be on. On FA Cup final day as well. So I think it's probably is the first one that I remember as well, is the 86
great
Cup
show.
final. 87, I think 87 Cup final was that Spurs and Coventry. I think I made my communion on that one. I'm not too sure, but
I know 85 was Everton United, 86 was Liverpool.
Yeah, I think Coventry best
could be right
in the 80s. I think it was Keith Plunkett got a diving header. But that was, you know, it was always on the cup final day as well, so it just always stuck in the head. But yeah, very similar memories. And my family, like my dad, my mum, both big Liverpool fans, and uncles and all that sort of stuff. So I grew up. It's funny you mentioned that official history of Liverpool. I had that as well, VHS, and we had another one then after that, the Mighty Reds, which focused on 87, 88. And it was a great DVD. So not DVD, sorry, video. So like me and my brother and my mates, we'd be just in the house all the time, just watching, you know, on repeat, like that. We could say every word of the commentary in those videos, you know, and it's things like that really get you into football, isn't it? And get you into a team. And in my family, it was just, they were all just big Reds, you know, that way. And it just sort of naturally led on. Now, I picked it all up from my dad, you know. You'd have books and things like that, and you'd be picking up the stuff like that. But it was a great time to be a Liverpool fan, but we maybe took it for granted. We were only kids. You mentioned the 87-88 team there, so your first memory is the 86 Cup final. But 87-88 really was a special team, wasn't it? I know people in the comments will be of that generation, and I'll know in the chat if you want to throw in user favourite memories. I see Avo has the 5-0 against Forest is in there. And it was a great team. But for anyone that doesn't understand, you know, you mentioned about people not thinking the FA Cup final is not the same as it was 30 years ago. And some of the players in that 87-88 team don't get the respect that they deserve. And I'm talking about the best player in that 87-88 team is John Barnes. And people don't know what John Barnes was of a certain age and a certain generation. But take it away, Gav.
John Barnes is the best player that's ever played with Liverpool.
Yeah,
and I'll argue with it any day of the week. People go on about Suarez and stuff like that. John Barnes was off the fucking scale good. It's hard to describe. You know, 86. You had Dalglish, you had Rush, right? You know, the double Dalglish as the player manager, and it was all, you know, there was a huge romanticism to it. And then they get beaten to the league the following season by Everton, and they come back in 87-88 and they signed Barnes and Beardsley. They brought in Aldridge, I think, earlier, maybe in the January. January. And like Shawnee Lawson says, they're sadly too young to remember Barnes. And I've said to Shawnee a few times, Shawnee, go onto YouTube and just type in John Barnes compilations, and you'll get, there's one in there that's about 10 or 11 minutes long, and it's just, it doesn't even do the chap justice. Like, you know, Stevie says, Gav, you're wrong, it's Steven Gerrard. I'm sorry, John Barnes was outrageous. He was it was outrageous how good he was, because, you know, you have to remember, like, you know, like even down to the abuse John Barnes took. You know, people say Stevie Gerrard took abuse, and he did. He took a lot from Everton. He took a lot from Manchester United. He took a lot from a lot of people. You know, but John Barnes was having fucking bananas thrown at him.
Yeah.
You know, genuinely, he was having bananas thrown at him at pitches, and you know, he was he just, when he took a ball, he could go left, right. He just run over you if he had to. He had the pace. He had the finesse. He had the power. You know, he goes up front in 89, 90, and he's a forward, and he's scoring bleeding headers and everything. Like Macca says, he was undescribable. It's actually close to that.
Yeah.
It's actually close to that, and the reason being is because Luis Suarez comes along in a time where there's 50 cameras in the ground. You know, John Barnes was playing when you'd be lucky if there was 4. You know, 1 on each end of the ground and 1 on both sides, or 2 on one side, 1 there wasn't on the other. But he was undescribable is actually a very, very, very good word. He was my first idol at Liverpool. I'm being honest with you. Like Dalglish, people would say Dalglish is the king. And listen, I've gone back and watched as much footage as I could, and he was brilliant as well. But the first one to kind of grab me was John Barnes, and the only thing I feel sorry for John Barnes was because signing for Liverpool probably ruined his England career, because he was so fucking good for Liverpool, right? And then they never played him to his max potential at England, and it killed him. And trust me, between 87, 88, 89, 90, John Barnes was up there as the best player in the world for me. He was outrageous. Yeah. He was, just go back and watch the compilation. I can't say much more about him. He was the first player that grabbed me, and I just thought, that's how to play football. You know the way they talk about the beautiful game, and they talk about, he had the law. He had the fucking law. And, you know, when you couple that with Aldridge, who just sniffed goals for fun, Beardsley, who would just know where to put a ball down the sides, and Barnes would be onto it. He'd know where to stand if Barnes got to the end line. He had eyes in the back of his head, Beardsley, for a couple of years at Liverpool. And, you know, you added it all into the players around him. You know, Grobbelaar was mad, but was brilliant at the same time. You know, they were good in defence. They were solid in midfield. They could play. They could get stuck in. Ronnie Whelan would go left back and look like he was the best left back around. They were just a special team. And, you know, up until probably 2 weeks ago, they were still my favourite Liverpool team of all time. And listen, there's a load of stuff goes on around Heysel, and you know, what happened, and Liverpool, along with everybody else in England, were denied European Cup entry for 5 years, I think it was. And the ones I feel sorry for the most would be those Liverpool players, because I think John Barnes would be held in a much higher stature than he is in the game now if he was allowed to play in European football from 87 to 90. I think that the comparisons between him.
European Cups. They would have won.
They would have won European Cups without doubt.
When you look at Steaua Bucharest and all these teams were in there in winning, and you know the level, Liverpool would have won another couple of European Cups, and if he wins the European Cup, his legend is just cemented, you know, and he lost out on that, and it's a shame.
Yeah, because I think you would have compared him to any of the greats, if you'd have got 3 seasons out of him in Europe, because come 90. I think it's 91 he does his Achilles. I think it's 91, and he's not the same player. The pace goes, the ability to drop his shoulder, and his body used to be all over the place shape-wise, because he could do anything. He could go anyway at last minute. You know, I think them 3 years there, I think you would have put him down as one of the absolute greats of world football, to be honest with you. But they were just a marvellous side.
They were absolutely brilliant, and you're right, you touched on it. And back then, you know, people of a younger sort of persuasion probably wouldn't even realise, you know, you're talking about a squad of maybe 15 players that were in that team, you know, and you'd go through them all, and there was maybe 1 or 2 that would come in, you know. Nigel Spackman, for example, was a utility man in that squad. And
somebody says Houghton was underrated as well, and that's
Houghton was amazing in that team, you know.
Yeah, he really was
up and down that wing. He was doing so much running. It was an amazing team, and it functioned so well. It was like a machine. But people going back to Barnes, like people even a little bit older will remember the you know, the Roy Evans John Barnes, the midfield John Barnes, and that's not the John Barnes we're talking about. We're talking about John Barnes that was a prototype of a winger who then became a centre forward. Where have we seen one of them? You know what I mean? We've got one now. Ronaldo is one. You know, these players that were just nearly transcended the wing position. You know, and he was in the England shake-up, you know, and he wasn't always getting games. Chris Waddle would be in ahead of him, and
they never used him to his potential. No. They had a massive chance, England. You know, we look back as Irish people, we look back at Euro 88, right? And you think of like Ireland beating England in Stuttgart, and it was amazing, and you know, all that went with it. But they literally had 2/3 of the best strike force around in Beardsley and Barnes, and I couldn't understand why they just didn't say, listen, we're playing Barnes where he plays Liverpool, we're playing Beardsley where he plays, and then you had Lineker, who was brilliant as you know, he was probably an upgrade on Aldrich for sniffing out goals. So and they had it, and they just didn't use it. But he was my first real hero for Liverpool. He really was, and you know, I see him on Twitter now, and it's a bit mad, like the stuff about giving someone on a toll booth £2 and only getting not getting 20 pence back and all. I'm kind of going, what's going on here? But sometimes genuinely, sometimes I just go onto YouTube and type in John Barnes compilations just to watch and remember how good he was. You know, like you know, nutmegging people on end lines for the laugh. You know, curling them in with his left foot, his right foot, headers. Just a majestic footballer. He really was.
To the top corner was the trademark John Barnes goal, wasn't it? It was whether it was a free kick or whether it was from outside the box. And what I always remember at Barnes before we move on was the moving from one foot to the other to get past the defender. There's the famous goal is against QPR where he just goes one way and the other straight off, and he's just gone through. And that was a John Barnes move, you know.
But he scores 2 in that game. Yeah, he scores 2. I remember one is the one you were talking about where he breaks away, he drops his shoulder, he goes left and he smashes it. The other one was where he plays the 1-2, lets it come across his body and puts it with his right foot into the top right hand corner at the top end. And when you look in the microcosm of John Barnes, you look and go, look at the pace, look at the power, look at the finishing, and then look at the finesse and the awareness and the intelligence in both those goals. You could throw all the words you throw around about all these great players and just look at those 2 goals, and you could assign them to John Barnes.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And he was integral to that team. He was integral to Liverpool. He came from Watford, and it was a big move. It was a British transfer record. It was in around that.
900,000 it was.
Well, then it wasn't, because Beardsley was 1.8, I think Beardsley was. So, but it was a big move. But his career had sort of stagnated a bit at Watford. I think he burst on the scene, scored in '84 in the Maracanã for England against Brazil, a solo goal, an outrageous goal. And I think that held him in too high esteem, and he expected him to be pulling up trees. And maybe that went against him in his later career at Liverpool, when he went to Liverpool, because he just never got the respect. But he really was. He really was the oil of that team, and he was in a time of I know racism hasn't gone away, but in a time when it was really bad, he stood out there, you know, as the first superstar, certainly for Liverpool. And I know there's been Howard Gale before him and that, but he was the superstar that sort of changed not saying he changed racism on Merseyside by any stretch of the imagination, but he made certainly Liverpool fans take a step back and maybe change their attitudes a bit, which is, when you think it's saying something like that, it's a huge statement. You know, it's like Mo Salah has the impact he's had on Islamophobia as well. You know, when these transcendent players come along, they're bigger than football, and Barnes was bigger than football back then. And maybe it's wrong looking at it from romantic eyes, but we were both of that generation, and others in the chat are the same. You know, he really was that good. You know, he really was that good.
He was. Stephen O'Connor asked, did you ever watch the John Barnes story video? Graham Taylor had him playing rugby. Brilliant story about his father Ken and all his brothers and sisters who've all done well for themselves. I haven't watched that. I'll try go and find it somewhere. I really will. Because I just like, I love when the likes of Shawnee and people come along and go, I'm just too young for Barnes, because I'd love to be in their position where I go, I get to watch this for the first time. Now I know it's not live and it's not in the era of when it happened, but you know, it's like people that love world football go and watch back and watch Maradona in '86, I suppose. Go and watch back and watching Barnes, just for those couple of seasons was just it was just an absolute pleasure. It really was. And you know, I'd love to see him more involved with the club, because I in my opinion, he's the best player to ever play for Liverpool. But and Gerrard's got loads of mention there. And we'll get on to Gerrard later as well. But I just love to see him more involved because I think he should be held in a much higher esteem than he is.
I agree totally on that. And maybe it's something that will happen down the line. I don't know, but he's like I said, he was the first idol of my generation as well. And that team goes from 87, 88. We all know 88, 88, 89. They miss out on the league title. There was Hillsborough happens, awful time really, and
the league didn't matter.
no.
Keith, I'm being honest with you now. Like
the way they lost
Phil,
it did, but
the way they lost it did. But let's be honest, like and Phil, I've said it before. One of the best podcasting things I've ever seen is when Phil had a meltdown randomly in the studio one night because flashbacks of Barnes not bringing it into the corner in the 89th minute against Arsenal, and it was funny to watch him do it that night because it still gets to him, and when Liverpool were crowned champions, the first question I asked Phil was, does that put the Barnes not bringing into the corner to bed? And he went, no, it never will. It'll never go away, but it's softened the blow a little. But listen, to me, the league didn't matter. And I think, like, I'm 7 years of age when Hillsborough happens, and, as much as you're into football, your parents will always protect you from certain things. And I remember that day. I remember it very well. And I remember being excited. Again, the big build-up. Forest were a decent side, but the FA Cup semi-final in a neutral venue where the way it should always be. The Wembley thing needs to go. But that's a conversation for another show, I suppose. But a neutral ground, Hillsborough, sunny. It's always sunny out, isn't it? An FA Cup semi-final days, or it used to be. And the biggest memory for me is the game kicks off, and look, we've all seen this. You can go on YouTube and see all this with regards to the BBC coverage and stuff like that. And Motson is commentating again, and he's even a bit. There's people getting on the pitch here, but you can kind of hear the concern in his voice because it doesn't look like people just getting on the pitch and running around for the crack.
Yeah.
But very soon. It becomes very apparent very soon that there's something seriously wrong because when the camera pans in, you can see people running to Grobbler and you can see the distress on their face, and they're trying to let people know. Now, you have to be very careful about how you speak about Hillsborough even to this day because, there's still things going on and you have to abide by them rules because if people are to be brought to justice over it, the best thing to do is say nothing. But on a personal level, for me, the day of Hillsborough, the game's only 4 or 5 minutes old, or whatever it is, and the referee clearly sees something wrong. He takes the players off, and then it starts to grow as to what's going on. My father turned off the telly. I'm going to be honest with you. My father turned off the telly because he knew what was going on. He could see what was going on. He obviously was able to take it in a lot quicker. He's a grown man. I'm a 7-year-old. I just want to see the football, and as a 7-year-old, it's hard to compute. Why are these people on the pitch? Why are the players coming off the pitch? Like I have a 7-year-old daughter. If she's seen people running off the pitch, she'd be like, what's going on there? Whereas I, as a 38-year-old man, would know there's something seriously wrong. But my father turned off the telly and said, look, it looks like they had to stop the game. There's a problem. I don't know what, he came up with some sort of excuse. And fair play to him. But he did. But I always remember later on that night, the way you do it, Keith. Your mother and father be down watching the telly, and you creep down the stairs, and you be in the hall, fucking listening into the telly or looking through the crack in the door. And that's what I done. And it was all on the news, And even as a 7, you couldn't compute it at the time of it actually happened. But that night, listen, I know my 7-year-old daughter. Now she goes on like she's 17, but you can see her brain. You can see kids' brains working, and that's we were all like that. And I remember looking through the crack in the door in the sitting room and seeing and hearing the numbers and stuff like that. And although it didn't deeply affect me at the time as a 7-year-old, I knew the size of what had happened. And you know, I still watch football afterwards, and obviously Liverpool didn't play for a couple of weeks afterwards. But then you see the images of Anfield and all the flowers, and you know, you've Kenny Dalglish going to as many funerals as he can, or if not all of them, and the players, and they were deeply affected by it. And you know, these players as a squad should be held in the highest regard until the end of time, or until the day Liverpool Football Club stop existing. Because you know, Kenny Dalglish gets an awful lot of credit for what he done, and you know, it broke the man. It did. It broke the man. But the players as well, you know, these are football players that went to work, and all right, that happened in front of them, but they didn't have to go and do what he done. You know, Kenny as an ambassador of the club and the main man of the club, it's probably under his remit to do it. But the players all went and done what he done, and you know, you'd forever be grateful to them, every single one of them, for what he done. Not only us, but the people of Liverpool and Liverpool fans and families of the people that died. But you know, I think the Arsenal won the league, and you can, if you go back and watch the footage of it, we all know the Michael Thomas stuff. I think Alan Smith scores the first one. Yeah. But if you go back and watch it, it's even a bit muted from Arsenal. And you know, and in fairness to Anfield, they stay and they clap Arsenal when they get the trophy. And I think it was a case of, yeah, well done. But you know, I don't think it was a cop out from Liverpool to say it doesn't matter, but it was a kind of, it was one that Liverpool, I think, were willing to take, rather than, you know, as opposed to other ones that would follow in years to come, where it would be kind of heartbreaking. But then, of course, you have the '89 Cup final, as Jerry Cahill says. It was iconic.
I was going to say that nearly overtook the league that season, didn't it? The FA Cup became the prominent sort of prize that year, especially playing Everton in the final.
It was iconic, and it was a game to match it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great game.
You know, I think Stuart McCall scores twice for them, doesn't he? He does. Of course, Rush is back at the club, and he has that iconic header from a Barnes cross, and Liverpool run out winners of the cup. But it was all about. But again, as much as I say the league didn't matter, the cup, I don't really know if the cup had went Everton's way that day, that anybody would have been. Not too fussed. Not too fussed is not the right terminology, but one of those where I think Merseyside showed what they were about that day.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the biggest thing. Like when you see two teams coming out in a cup final and Merseyside is being sang all over the ground, as a reaction of solidarity against the media and a certain newspaper in particular, but and the government and the rest of the country to a certain extent, because like the media reported certain things, but that's bad enough, but people believed it, and I think that's what hurts more. You know, as Tony Evans once said, like if he famously said, if someone was lying on the ground, would you piss on them and rob money? And the person said no, and he said, well, why do you think I would?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's an extremely important quote from Tony Evans.
Yeah.
And that day, I think it just showed. I know as a 7-year-old at the time, I know looking at that, I was proud to be a Liverpool fan, and I was proud to be associated with a club from that city that day, I think. And that was the big thing that came over for me.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you touched on the reaction to what happened there, and, you know, people believe in certain reports. And, like, my dad, for example, will put Nigel Clough failing at Liverpool down to the fact that the crowd never gave him a chance because of what Brian Clough was saying after Hillsborough. He feels that, you know, some commentators, the likes of Brian Clough and all that, talked shy at the time, you know. The city just never forgave them, you know, forgave. I think Liverpool were the only ones that didn't have a minute's silence or a round of applause when Brian Clough died, you know. It was, you know, the stuff that came out, the slanderous stuff that came out about the people of Liverpool was just, and that's what that cup final, it's a good point. It's probably one that, the only one that, if it had gone either way, it was the Merseyside Cup final. And, you know, luckily Liverpool came out on the right side of it, but if they hadn't, it might have been different. So that team, that brings us through right to the end. Kenny, we know, comes back, wins the league the next year. Wasn't a great team. There was an age, the team was aging, I think, at that stage. You know, there was a few players coming in that probably weren't of the quality that you'd want, and Kenny walks away, and it brings us to the Souness era. So you're hitting your teens, probably not your teens, your tens.
Souness takes over in 91. So I'm 9 years of age. And Dalglish going. You always see the footage of the kids in Liverpool when Shankly says he's going in 74. 74 I think it was, wasn't it? And they're like, you're kidding me, you're joking. But as a 9-year-old, I was a bit similar. I was like, no way, because this fella was, and I said it a couple of weeks ago when we won the league, he's Mr. Liverpool. And you can try your best to tie him to Newcastle or tie him to Blackburn or Celtic or whoever else, but he's not. He's Liverpool through and through, and don't let the accent fool you. He is Liverpool Football Club, and Souness had a good reputation, you see, because Souness had been up at Rangers, and
they were at the time, again, this is another generational thing before you go on. Like,
they were a heavyweight in Europe.
Yeah, they were. It wasn't like some scaldy Scottish team. They were in Britain. They were the second best team in Britain, and Liverpool were number one. Rangers were number two. Like, make no mistake, this wasn't.
Yeah, Rangers were a huge power, and Souness was a manager during part of the 9 in a row that they won, and you look at Brendan Rodgers, who's a part of Celtic as a 9, possibly 10. But Souness was somewhere along in the same way, and of course Souness had gone from Liverpool, he'd gone to play in Italy, and then he was back at Rangers, and he had a great side up there. So he seemed to be the perfect man, didn't he? Form and listen, he goes down as one of the greats. He's before my time, but of course you go back and watch the footage, and he was outrageous as well. But he comes with the perfect reputation, and I think Souness is probably the reason why I don't like to see former players come back and manage Liverpool.
Yeah,
I think that one nail was the one in the coffin it was only one nail needed in this coffin.
Yeah, that was it.
And that was it. You didn't need a series of nails. One was fine, and that's all it was. Like Kev O'Sullivan says there, people should go and Google the Rangers side. Go and Google Rangers 89, 90 or 90, 91. They did a great side. And, and they continued it on for a couple of years. Like, they end up with Peter Hoekstra playing for them. Laudrup goes and plays for them.
Did they have 90, 91 and all, Ali McCoy, Mark Haley, they were playing in the early Champions League as well, and they were a force then, even when Suey started to come to us, he built a great team. So people thinking, even when you compared Brendan Rodgers to that, it's not like this was bigger than Celtic are now. The Scottish League, unfortunately, is a bit garbage now. Like, they were a top team, and Souness coming in with a great appointment.
Yeah, Celtic weren't in the best at the time, but the thing about Rangers were, and the difference between Rangers then and Celtic now is that Rangers could run amok in Scotland, but they also they backed it up in Europe. They were just so good, but it ruined any sort of romantic notions of bringing players back, and that's why I'm firmly against Steven Gerrard being the next Liverpool manager, because of Graeme Souness, and that's probably unfair on Steven Gerrard, but to me it doesn't work. Dalglish the second time round didn't work, and I don't know if Klopp managed for 4 more years and just take a 10. If I don't know, pick a fucking player. If Jamie Redknapp became a manager tomorrow and won league titles 4 years in a row somewhere, I wouldn't want Jamie Redknapp back. It's not a personal thing against Steven Gerrard. It's scars from years gone back. Souness tried to change too much too soon. Avo hits the
exactly 100%.
Yeah, he hits the nail on the head. Avo. He says Suey wanted every player to be like him, and the team he played in, he expected too much. He absolutely did, but he was getting rid of players like Staunton. He was getting rid of Houghton, Beardsley. I don't know. Was he paranoid about this was Dalglish's team? Because you even see it now. Someone comes in and a year later they win something, and it's like, oh well, that's such and such's team. I've heard fucking calls of Pochettino at Spurs was good, but like a lot of them players were Harry Redknapp or fucking one of these things. It never stops. So was he a bit paranoid about that? And was he trying to just stamp himself on it and put Dalglish out of the picture? I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's a bit more intelligent than that. But he tried, like Avo said, he tried way too much too soon. And the players he brought in, my Jesus, like it was ridiculous what he was at. And not only that, when you couple that with, and we've spoken about this a lot, Keith, like Liverpool stood still from around 92 till about I would argue till FSG came in.
Yeah.
And when you couple Souness going around and throwing money at things, at garbage, let's be honest a bit.
Yeah.
And then we're standing still off the pitch as well. It was a recipe for disaster that we didn't see coming, because even as a like I'm 9 years of age at this stage, you're used to success, Keith.
Yeah.
You're used to success. A bit like United fans for the following 25 years.
Yeah.
Kids growing up, they were used to success. And that's why I made the point when Liverpool won the league that I was happier for people that were younger. You know, Shawnee is younger than us, but I was happy for him. I was happy to see 10, 11, 12-year-olds going around delighted because getting that, but also seeing what it meant to their fathers or their older brothers or uncles as what it meant to them, and understanding where Liverpool had gone from and gone to. And we were used to success, but listen, it was years of garbage. It was only lightened up really by Robbie Fowler, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, it is true. Like, we're going to go through that period, but it was certainly. Jer Cattle put a good comment in there about Souness. Like, he had the Italian culture and he knew about the drinking culture. Like, Souness was a player manager at Rangers. You know, he wasn't long retired, and he took on the Liverpool job, and he was still, I think he admits it now, he not that he tried to do too much too soon, he did admit that, but he wasn't as open to other ideas, and it was his way. He was too hard. Do you know what I mean? I know he's a reputation as a hard man, but he was too headstrong and hard set in his ways. And that sort of went against him, you know. And like that, he's coming from Italy, where it's all diet and it's the drinking is gone, but he played as part of the drinking culture. And he had players there in the squad that he played with, and he found that difficult. And he did try to do too much, I think. You know, some of the changes didn't make sense, but he wanted to stamp his own name on the team. Now, we all know what happened with his story to the Sun and all that, and a lot of people fell out of love with him for that, you know, and some only coming back around to him now, you know. But he didn't last too long in the job. He got an FA Cup out of it, but
yeah, we got the FA Cup, didn't he, after having bypass surgery or something? He wasn't allowed. He was allowed on the bench, but he wasn't allowed to jump up and down.
Yeah, there's the famous picture, isn't it, when we scored and they hadn't hold him down and all that.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, someone mentioned Dean Saunders there. Dean Saunders was a record transfer at the time. I think it was 2.9 million. He was signed with Mark Wright, I think, from Derby. I think was Mark Wright somewhere around the £2 million mark as well, though.
Yeah, Mark Wright was captain, or he had captained England and all.
Yeah, Stephen O'Connor says it was a double swoop. Saunders and Mark Wright from Derby. The good old days when we didn't know the plans of the club on Twitter. And we don't know anymore either. Yeah, Stephen, don't believe what you're told. But yeah, he got the FA Cup, of course, you know. Rush scores and Michael Thomas scores. Scores 2 good goals as well.
Yeah.
And you know, we were expected to win that day, and we did, but soon after, you know, I think he gets another year, does he? A year and a half, and then it's game over, and rightfully so.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, you mentioned that the great Michael Thomas goal, a great forgotten goal actually in Liverpool history. That was a great goal. But then we merge into the Roy Evans era, the Spice Boys. We're doing a poll on the Twitter page there, and putting in players that were the worst, weren't the best. The Roy Evans era boys are coming out strong in that, you know, in the sense that we're picking like John Scales got one centre back space, Stiggy Bjornaby, Jason McAteer. Is that a team that you feel was painted harshly? What's your memories? Because again, I keep saying you're coming in now into your teens at this stage, and what's your memories now of this era?
Do you know what? If this side we have now didn't win a league title, they would be probably fairly familiar or similar, to the side you're talking about. From probably 95 to 97. Really good going forward. They weren't good enough to back. It's as simple as that. Jerry Cahill says there they played a 3-5-2. They bring in John Scales. They have, you know, they've Mark Lloyd,
Neil Rudder.
Phil Babb is there. Yeah, there's and then of course you've Rob Jones. Played a lot of left back or left wing back. You had Jason McAteer, you had Redknapp, you had Barnes, then of course you had Fowler, you had McManaman, you had Collymore. They were exceptional going forward, and they were a bit like I suppose Klopp's side around 2016. Great going forward, bit mad at the back, and it was never really going to get where they needed it to get to. but they were mad to watch. And the one to come out of that, like Collymore gets a harsh time for me. Collymore, I think he gets 40 goals in 2 seasons for Liverpool. I could be wrong, like 30 player. Anyway. He was an animal when he wanted to be, absolute animal. But the only thing, the problem with Stan Collymore was off the pitch he was a lunatic.
And that was back in the 90s. Imagine what it'd be like now with you know, you wouldn't be able to fart and it'd be everywhere, you know.
And as well as that, I don't think he mixed very well with his teammates. I've heard stories from Tony Werner about him. You know, I think it's fairly well known. He could throw in a strop every now and then, and it wouldn't go down well. But McManaman was exceptional, and Fowler was just, you know, John Barnes was the first one to take me and go, what a player. And Liverpool, Robbie Fowler was just, you were buzzing for this fella. You were just, it was literally like watching the older fella on the street just going out and banging in goals. That's what it was like. And he scored every single different type of goal. He was absolutely outrageous as well. And I think that's all that got me kind of through. That's the only thing that Robbie Fowler, Collymore at times, McManaman was brilliant. We win the League Cup in '95 against Bolton, but that's all that really gets you through up until Houllier comes in and they decide the job share with Roy Evans. But there wasn't a lot in there, I'm being honest.
No. And that's, you know, we were the third best team. Probably, you know, Newcastle were there and thereabouts a few years. United were winning leagues. Arsenal were winning leagues. But this was before the days of 4 Champions League places, so the team never really got near. You know, UEFA Cup was what the Cup Winners' Cup would be what they'd be getting into. And it's a strange one because I spoke on a show we done about Michael Owen, and how I never warmed to Michael Owen, but Robbie Fowler. And I don't know if it's maybe, you know, look, I'm from Dublin and working class background, and I don't know if I just gravitated towards the sort of natural scallywag that Robbie Fowler was, but he was my type of player. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was something about Robbie Fowler that you were like a fly on shite around. You know what I mean? You homed in on him. Everything he done was just like, this fella's just magic. You know, Michael Owen will score a shitload of goals, and when you look back at him, he scored some great goals. But Robbie Fowler had that bit of magic, you know, and he never gets remembered as a great. England at that time, I suppose, had a very good team, and he had an absolute wealth of strikers. But he's another one that maybe didn't get, and McManaman as well, like maybe didn't get the credit at international level that they deserved, and were kept out by players that probably not of a better standard. You know,
well, Fowler's around when kind of Sheringham was in his pomp, and Shearer's most definitely in his pomp, and you know they were England's poster boys, these two. You know, but I wasn't really too bothered with that because if Fowler wasn't playing for England, it meant he wasn't getting injured, and he was turning up for Liverpool most weeks. But Fowler was, he just was. He was a man of the people, you know. He's pulling off jerseys and he has the supports of the Dockers and stuff like that. And Owen's a bit different. Owen comes in the back end of 96, 97. He makes his mark away to Wimbledon in a defeat, but he scores. But Fowler from early on, you know, he scores 5 against Fulham in the League Cup, and you know some of the goals he scored just. But left foot, right foot headers, smashing them, placing them, curling them, dinking keepers, sitting keepers on their arse, going around. He just done everything, and he literally just was one of those players. I think that he's a bit of a generational player, to be honest. Yeah. Because, and I still, to this day, I still think he's the best finisher I've ever seen at Liverpool.
Okay, yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that, to be totally honest. I think it's, again, injury sort of does for him, you know what I mean? In the sense that you'd love to know what he could have done, you know, what records he could have broke, that he wasn't getting sold off, and it's a shame the way it sort of peters out. But it was a team that you're dead right, that team, it was very gung-ho. It was, you know, you score 4, we'll score 5, but sometimes we'll only score 3, you know what I mean? And it was, they never could get over that hump. Did you feel it was right when Houllier came in, the job share, or was that just a recipe for disaster, and it was too sentimental and probably a sign of Liverpool not being able to function as a big club when they done the job share thing? Or do you think it was...
if you have to go like to look at that appointment, you have to look back. You know, like if you look back at Shankly, at Paisley, at Joe Fagan, Kenny Dalglish, you know, and Souness, they're all Liverpool men. It's all the boot room, isn't it? You know, Roy Evans gets it, and I'm delighted Roy Evans got the job. Now, Roy Evans probably needed to get in the Champions League. You know, he probably needed to win a league and get into the Champions League for him to propel himself. But you know, like I've heard stories, people saying Roy Evans was soft and stuff like that, and I don't think that's true. I think he done very well. If you look at the characters he had in the squad, there's no way a soft man runs that squad. When you look at actually the personalities he had there, but for me, they wanted Houllier, right? Yeah. They wanted to step away from the boot room thing because it hadn't worked. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
You know, what are we 8 years down the line from Dalglish leaving, and it hasn't worked. And in fairness, they've identified it and said, listen, this is not the way anymore. It's an old-fashioned way of doing things, and it's not the way it's done. You know, at this stage, you know, Wenger's in charge are Arsenal, isn't he? And people are going around amazed at fucking pasta because Wenger said stuff about pasta. You know, so a lot of teams were kind of jumping on that and saying, well, we should go with these managers and stuff. But again, they were still tied to that boot room thing. So what did they come up with? Joint managers, and it doesn't work. It's never worked. It never will work. And it was only a matter of time before Evans was on his way. But listen, Houllier done an amazing job. You know, he comes into the job then, and you have Michael Owen coming through. Fowler's still good. You know, he has decent players there, and it takes time for Houllier, but he gets there in the end. You know, he genuinely gets there in the end.
Yeah. He does. It's putting us back, not on our perch, but it's certainly, you know, the trophies are coming more. He's built a good team, and we're back in European competition. You know, it's still not where we want it to be, but it's laying foundations for Rafa. You know what comes after that, and it was a good team that you had. When you look back, you know, he was building something. It was just, there was other great teams back around then as well, you know, and it was something that used to get on my nerves, that a sense of entitlement that Liverpool should be winning the league because we're Liverpool. You can't do that, you know what I mean? You have to walk right from top to bottom, and Liverpool clearly, we used to all say it, I'm sure you say it, everyone would say it, you know, oh no, we don't need to be selling our flogging our golly to people in the Far East, you know, we don't need that money, we're Liverpool. Well, we should have been flogging our golly to bleeding anyone that'd buy it, because Man United just took off commercially and left us. We were too placid as a club, I think, and we let it slip away from us. It was hard to get it back then, you know, really hard to get it back. But Houllier instilled a bit of discipline back into the squad that was needed. But they were bleeding brutal to watch at the end of his sort of period as well.
Well, they were never good to watch.
No.
They were never good to watch. Avo asked Gav, does Barnes get in this team? And if so, who? You play 4-2-3-1. You put Mane in the 10. You put Barnes on the left, Salah on the right, and you put Firmino up front. I've thought about this a lot, Avo. And that's the way. And that's the way. Owenburg says Pete Barnes gets in today's team at centre back if he wants. Well, he can't get in number 10 because Joe Gomez is playing there. But
I think we're never going to make an exception on Joe Gomez for John Barnes, another idol of his.
It looks like Jordan Henderson misses the start of the season as well. Just getting away from this conversation for a minute. People are saying there, it looks like he might be out. Henderson out for a long time, says.
What's the injury?
Sorry, Stevie LFC. And I seen Shawnee saying earlier that Henderson missed the start of the next season. It's obviously ligaments, I'd say, in the knee, is it?
Yeah, must be.
So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll have a chat about it tomorrow, obviously, on the build-up show.
Hope he can still lift that trophy.
He'd be grand.
Yeah.
If not, John Terry will put on a Liverpool kit and come out and lift it for him. Yeah. But yeah, they were never good to watch, Keith.
No,
let's be perfectly honest about it. And they had players that could be good to watch. You know, like when you look at, like, Berger had flair about him.
Yeah.
You know, almost flying. You know, they had some really, really good players. But Houllier had a way. Houllier wanted a big side, big, robust.
Yeah.
You know, nearly just nearly wrestle with the other side and sit back and let them kind of blow the load and then go for them and get goals here and there. They were never good to watch. Having said that, Liverpool sides that were good to watch never won anything.
Yeah.
And you know, he he goes and wins 3 trophies in 2001. And you can never begrudge the man that he puts them back in the Champions League. He wins the FA Cup, he wins the League Cup, and he wins the UEFA Cup. And listen, me and you talk about great teams that play great football and win things. We also talk about great sides that play brilliant football and don't win things. This was a very functional side with some great players in it. And but they got the job done, like Owen Burke says Houllier's best signing was Sammy Houpier. Chris Brack says that Stevie LFC was in Dortmund for the Alaves match, which was just off the wall, and completely went against what Houllier was about, because you think when you're 2-0 or 3-1 up, he's just going to put it to bed, don't you?
Well, that's it, but it doesn't happen. And the reason I want to say this is because I remember going to games around this time with, me and the lads that go over. Some of the worst experiences I've ever had at football matches. They were absolute dire. You're going over and it's like, this is played dreadful. And he gets a bit of a harsh ride because of that, I think, from a lot of fans. But he put silverware on the table, didn't he? And he built a team, as we said, a big, strong 6 foot plus. He brought through the younger players like Gerrard and Carragher. They looked up to him. I know Carragher was probably there beforehand, but he really was, guided by Houllier at the start. But it leads us into Rafa then. Rafa comes in. What do you make of Rafa's appointment? Because at the time it was Jose and Rafa had won the 2 European competitions. Were you excited by the appointment of Benitez?
Yeah, I wanted him over Mourinho. I thought Mourinho was too much of a mouth. And, we can, when you look back at Houllier and Evans and what he done there, and you're kind of going, cut the strings here, cut the umbilical cord, go with Houllier. I didn't want them to go completely against their principles and go with Jose Mourinho. Now listen, Jose Mourinho's done more or less everything in the game, but he's not a Liverpool manager and he never will be. Because you have to have a certain class about you, and Jose Mourinho doesn't have it. He's trying to get it later in his career, but he doesn't have it. And I was delighted with Benitez. Benitez brings a Valencia side to Anfield in pre-season, I think, in 2002 or 3, and they tear us apart. Yeah, I think they might win 1-0 or 2-0 on the day, but they tear us apart. So good defensively, so organised, but clinical at the same time. And when Danny says there, he was rubbing his hands when Rafa came in. His Valencia team battered us home and away. We needed a separate ball against them. We couldn't get it off them. And I was looking at that and I was saying to myself, this is the way football's going. And I think Benitez, I like the style. He broke up the dominance of Madrid and Barcelona as well. And I was very, very excited by it. But he comes in tough times. He does. Like, Gerrard's kind of getting his head turned. Owen is pretending he's going to sign a contract and he's never signing a contract. He has to go to Portugal, doesn't he, in Euro 2004 and speak to them. And the 4th season is just off the wall, isn't it? We talk about Istanbul and it's madness, but the whole season is bleeding madness because we're terrible in the league, Keith. Yeah. Terrible. Awful. And we just keep turning up and lashing these big teams out and then going away to Bolton and getting battered. Yeah. But listen, Benitez, overall, he wins the European Cup. He goes so close to 2009. He gets screwed by the owners, let's be honest about it. And he goes under a cloud. And I thought it was sad the way he left the club, I'm being honest with you. He's a man that still owns a property on the Wirral, I think, in Liverpool. Yeah. He donates to the Hillsborough Fund in a big way. I think his wife and family still live there, even though he'd just be messing in China and Newcastle and all. He'll always have the respect of everyone at Liverpool again, as long as he's around, for me.
Yeah, I agree totally. He's held in huge esteem, and he carried himself well. He carried himself with dignity, Rafa Benitez. Despite everything that happened. And you're right, that 4th season sort of encapsulated his whole Liverpool career. He was pulling the blanket, the famous blanket expression. You pull it up, cover your shoulders and your feet are sticking out. You cover your feet and your top is sticking out. He could never just get that, he could never get that perfect side. There was never a time when you felt we had a great team under Benitez in the sort of Torres, Gerrard era, but there was still gaping holes in it, and it's but it's just unfortunate.
but people are saying there, like, if the owners backed Rafa, but you have to remember these are owners, you know, that they stood still.
Yeah.
And then they sold the club to two absolute fucking cowboys. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it just goes from bad to worse. You know, they went in a position to back him because they put themselves in the position where they couldn't back him.
Yeah.
You know, and like, and the funny thing for me is, do you remember Benitez does that interview, and he's like literally stating facts about Manchester United, and he's stating facts about this and that and the other. And the funny thing is, right, people lashed him over that, right?
It was all right. It was all true.
Yeah, but people lash him over. That, like Stevie says, his fact speech was his downfall. But you see, but what you don't get is, if you go back and watch that, right, and watch what he's saying and watch what he's trying to employ, right. This is the exact same things that the social media, you know, social media, when that blows up, and Twitter and Facebook, and that's exactly what people are saying on the internet every fucking day of the week.
Yeah.
Benitez was just a bit before his time, you know, and it might have been his downfall, but I'd have no problem with it, because at the same time, like, skipping on a few years, Dalglish comes back, has no time for the press, says what he fucking wants, and everyone thinks he's great for it. But when Benitez, the Spanish fella, comes along and does it, the English press decide to call him a fat Spanish waiter and all sorts of stuff like that. But if that had been fucking Steve Bruce with his big head saying it, people would have went, look at Steve Bruce, you know, he's proud fucking Englishman and stuff like that. So
but he went out against the media darling Sir Alex, who is the king of mind games. Do you know what I mean? And
well, he just banned you from Old Trafford if you didn't agree with him.
He got in his head, he got in Rafa's head. But it was it wasn't a Kevin Keegan sort of meltdown. It was, listen, when you're right, when you look back at it, it's like fact, and they were just dove on him, you know, fact, because of his accent and all. It's like Emery, wasn't it, with a good evening and all this sort of thing. Dove on it.
Yeah, and the gas thing is, like, you know, that's allowed, you know, to talk about foreign people and the way they speak, you know. But the funny thing is, when you go over to their country, expect them to fucking know what you're talking about as well, because the English is just the language everyone should speak, and that's it. You know, it's mad, like. But listen, it's loads of stuff culminates against and goes against Benitez. You know, you have got the finances, you've got the sale of the club, then you have fucking what's going on with Hicks and Gillette. You have players that want out, you know. It's all going on, and in the end, he has to go for his own good, you know.
The atmosphere was toxic, like it was.
The atmosphere was toxic, and someone said there earlier, like, Gerrard carried the club, and I think it was Sean, he might have said, when we were talking about John Barnes and the Gerrard comparison came in, but Gerrard did carry the club on his back for 10 years, and I'm not saying Gerrard's not one of the best, most influential players Liverpool have ever had. I'm just saying that I think Barnes is the best player we've ever had. But the biggest problem with Benitez going is that other melt that comes in, Roy Hodgson, and that's, I have to be honest with you, like, in a football, like, Hillsborough is a very, very dark day, and always will be. Reason. But in a footballing sense, this was the worst. Yeah, it was absolutely the worst. He's never a Liverpool manager, is he? He's, you know, look at the way he's, like, we're going on about Hodgson, or not Mourinho being a mouth, but Hodgson comes in and he's looking down. He's looking down on Liverpool fans. He's looking down on the city of Liverpool.
Didn't get any of it, didn't he? No, he just didn't get it. It was all, you know, the defeat to Everton. This is the best performance of the season. Like, fuck off. Or Man United, I can't stop Sir Alex from trying to buy Fernando Torres. They're Liverpool manager, so tell him to fuck off. Or, you know, the great Jose Mourinho was praising us, so we must be doing something right. Like, leave it out, will you? He was a disaster. He was just bad news. He's a manager that settles for 10th because he's no problem losing games, and then will crow about the ones he wins. You can't do that at Liverpool. But look, we'll skip on from him. He was absolute garbage.
Stephen Mack is saying that only 27 likes. Keith got 50 plus last night. I need to up my game. This isn't even my show. This is Keith. So Keith's numbers are falling.
Yeah, you could spin it that way.
You know what? Keith's numbers aren't falling. Your fucking numbers are falling. People that are watching, their numbers are falling. You want to keep your numbers up. I mean, we're keeping our end of the bargain.
We're coming out here. We're putting ourselves on the line like this.
Absolutely on the line. You know, but up your game. Hit the like button, hit the
Smash
share
that
button,
like,
all that
share,
stuff.
bell icon, notifications, all that carry
Do all
on.
that. Do all that. How many, someone keeps me up to date. If we get up to 50 likes, I'll tell you what, I'll personally buy somebody something from 3 Retro tonight.
There you go. You just can't ask for more than that.
Right, so if we get to 50 likes, I'll ask a question, and the first person to answer it gets a 3 Retro jersey of their choice, and I'll pay for it. How does that sound? That's to celebrate my golf today. Nothing to do with Liverpool. But yeah, Hodgson was appalling. I don't even think I want to talk about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, move on. Nothing to see here. And even Kenny, like the comeback of Kenny was a romantic decision that, well, initially worked. I think the permanent appointment was a sentimental one that FSG made early in their tenure that they probably regretted and might have nearly affected them going forward. It was sort of sad how Kenny's second reign went, and it might taint. We've spoken about people not remembering how good the 87 team was, that John Barnes was, and you wouldn't want them to remember Kenny just for Mark II. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a great side. The atmosphere wasn't great. He done his best. He steps in at the hour of need, but it was never really.
He does with Dalglish. He steps in and he does well. Now, in fairness to him, he gets the extension and he wins the League Cup.
Yeah.
And he gets beaten in the final of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, like the League Cup of 2012 was our first trophy since 2006. The FA Cup at the Millennium Stadium under Benitez against West Ham. And then when you look at 2012, when's our next trophy?
Last season, was it?
European Cup 2019, I think, is our next trophy.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it like that, wow. But it's one of the things that sort of annoys me when people say, go for the domestic cups. Those domestic cups, you don't even remember them. Do you know what I mean? When you're so far off the league or you're not in the Champions League, those League Cups and FA Cups, they're only all right if they're tagged onto something else, aren't they? Like, if you're just winning them and you're not at the races, you don't hold them in high esteem anymore.
Yeah.
But
Dalglish, what does for Dalglish is his purchases in the transfer market are poor.
Yeah.
And I think as much as we accuse Jose Mourinho being left behind in football, I think
it was painfully obvious.
I think it passed Dalglish by with the way he wanted to play and the way football stood in 2012.
Yeah.
But again, it was a good move from FSG to bring him in. It mightn't have been the best move to extend.
No.
And then it got messy because we had to bring in another manager, didn't we?
Yeah.
But all said and done, Dalglish is still sitting here today, and he's still
he's still the icon, isn't he? Like, he's still Mr. Liverpool.
He's so Kenny Dalglish. He has a stand named after him. He's there. He's the first person that all the media want to speak to when Liverpool win the title. So I love him. I love him to bits. I love everything about him. I love the fact that he had everyone wearing Suarez t-shirts. Yeah. And I don't know, was it right, was it wrong? Make your own mind up, but I think it's great. Because
it shows he was about, defend his team and
pig ignorance.
There and show them fuckers that we're not going to let them walk all over us. And when you look at the message he was trying to convey, whether it was right or wrong, the point of what he was trying to do was the right thing. Despite what we think, it was the right thing he was trying to do, and I'll always respect him for that. Despite what others will try to claim.
But you just said a minute ago, Roy Hodgson's walking around after a 3-0 defeat to Everton saying it's our best performance of the season, and telling people that as Roy Hodgson, Liverpool manager, he can't stop Sir Alex Ferguson from signing Fernando Torres. Yeah. Whereas Kenny Dalglish is going, he probably said something to him, but we're standing with him. And somebody said there he brought the club back to the fans, and I think that's a great shit.
That's a huge point. It's a great point.
David Hornby, I want to get your name. Sorry, I'm going to put it back on the screen. He says, no, he brings us back to the club, the fans.
Yeah.
He does. He puts some sort of identity on Liverpool again, because under Hodgson, people are just walking around the days.
Yeah. And even before Hodgson, like, there was the Hicks and Gillette thing was happening. There was the court case to, FSG getting the club, everything about, there was just bad vibes around the place, bad juju all over the shop. And then Kenny comes in and he gives it. It's a great point. He gives it back to the fans, and we move into the Brendan Rodgers era. Then, you know, it's remembered for one good season, isn't it? And you know, what do you make of that time? Is it fond memories, or is it?
I think at the time, you know, people might have been looking around Europe at different managers, but I think Liverpool were at a level at the time where there was a bit of uncertainty around them. You had owners that were still finding their feet. They'd come in and fucking first thing they were met with was Roy Hodgson, which isn't good. Yeah. Then you had the Dalglish thing where they made a great decision at the start, and I think a poor one. To extend, and then they had not a messy breakup with Dalglish, but it was in the media. You know, how can you do this to Kenny Dalglish?
Exactly.
So they were probably at a level where they were looking at, and it looked like it was between Brendan Rodgers and Roberto Martinez, for the job. And I wasn't over positive about either of them, I'm going to be honest with you, because even though we weren't great, even though we'd had terrible owners and we were possibly minutes away from going out of business, both of them kind of felt a bit, not a bit risky, I think very risky. Rodgers has had experience at Watford, Chelsea, Reading, I think. Is that the three clubs he's at? Yeah, I think that's
Watford, Reading and Swansea.
Yeah, and Chelsea was a coach, wasn't he?
Yeah, youth coach,
Yeah, and then you had Martinez, who was, what was he, dusting around Wigan or something, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But Rodgers comes in, and in fairness to him, he takes a while to get going, but then he brings in Coutinho and Sturridge.
Yeah.
And it changes for him at the back end of 12-13. They look great. They still look a bit shaky defensively, but we shouldn't be surprised with that, because Brendan Rodgers to this day is a manager that I think is of a certain level and won't go any higher than that. Yeah. And I think Leicester's form at the moment has shown that.
And I think, 100%.
And I think Celtic's inability to do anything in Europe shows that as well.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, I think he gets to a certain level. I think he runs out of ideas. 2013-14 that was off the charts. I know it's Shawnee's, and I keep mentioning Shawnee because me and him just talk about mad stuff all the time.
Yeah.
It's Shawnee's favourite season, and it's up there for me as well, because it was just insane. You had Sterling coming through, who was written off away a Hull that season, and comes back flying. Suarez was just a man possessed. Sturridge was lightning and clinical. And, you know, you had Gerrard playing this quarterback role, they called it. You had Henderson buzzing around the place. You had bleeding Sissoko left back. You had Flanagan acting the maggot. You had centre halves that were scoring as many own goals as they were goals at the other end. You know, it was just one of those seasons where it nearly came off. It nearly came off, but the sad reality is that he was showing up badly the following season. Badly. You know, Owen Burke says Alec McLeish was interviewed for the Liverpool job before Rodgers. So there you go. That's the level you're at.
That's the level, exactly. And you also had the Kamoli thing as well there. And then when Rodgers comes in, he doesn't want to be working with transfer committees. You know, it's just a mess, you know, and the FSG were learning always on the ground. But that season, 13-14, it was a great season, but it was built on Weetabix. You know, you knew there was nothing sustainable about it.
Yeah. Once it rained, it was going to wash down the street.
Yeah. And you're looking at it and you're like, it's shit or bust, isn't it? And then the next season, you're like, it was a blatant disaster. Steven Gerrard goes out on an absolute whimper. It's a disgrace how he goes out. At the last home game, the Palace, we get licked, and then the 6-1 against Stoke. Should have been sacked there on the spot, to be honest. But, he isn't. But we move in then to the age of Jurgen. We won't go on too much about the current team, but I do want to ask you, where do you rate them? We spoke about it at the start, so like, would you rate this team now, of all the teams you've seen, up there as the best? Not the start of Jurgen's reign, but the culmination of it. Is this the best that you've seen
overall?
Yeah, you rate it ahead of the 87 team now.
Yeah. I think I do. And you know, the thing about the 87-88 team that you could always put forward as an argument is that they could mix it with you. They could sit back and hit you on the break. They could control the game. They could camp in your half. They could be physical. They were mentally strong. They put trophies down. You know, they put FA Cups, and whatever they could put down at the time. They put down. i.e. leagues and FA Cups. But this side surpasses it because of everything I've just said. This team can do it. Now, this 87, 88 didn't have the opportunity to go and win European Cups, and I firmly believe they would have. But for this side now, and you talk about 2013, 14, being built on sand or Weetabix or whatever way you want, something that doesn't react to water very well, let's be honest, or is not very stable.
Goodison.
Well, Goodison, is floating around there. They're going to lend that to different countries during pre-season. But it's just one of those things where you look at it and you say it can do anything, this team. And it's the biggest thing for me is how it faces adversity. And disappointments. You've seen them lose a League Cup final to City, a Europa League final to Sevilla, which they were well in control of until Albion Moreno forgets he's a footballer. And they should have won that night. There's no doubt about it. They go and they lose. Their record of staying in Europe and going to finals, they lose in Kiev to Madrid, and the goalkeepers are shambles. But they come back and they win it the next year. And to coincide with that, they do 97 points, playing brilliant football, and they get pipped by a point. And what did they do? They just go and go, here, we're just going to take 92 of them, 102 as we stand today. They have the absolute lot. And the biggest, the way they react is brilliant, but the way it's being built has been exceptional for me. If you go back and look at it, people, I'll tell you how I noticed it. People are saying, what's the catalyst for this side? And people will argue, well, it's Sadio Mane. Oh no, it's Salah signing. Oh, it's actually Alisson and Van Dijk. Or no, Trent coming through. But what about Robertson? We found him. And look at Henderson, how he's developed. But Jesus, Fabinho come in and no one knew nothing about it. And you can put an argument forward for any of them. And just when you look at the squad now, and it's great to see young players coming through. But yeah, it's without doubt. It's the best Liverpool side I've seen, and it's the most enjoyable side I've ever watched. And as I said, I'm 38, so I'm watching them over 30 years, and I've watched some good teams. I've watched some very good teams. I've watched some brilliant players individually, but all in, this one surpasses the lot for me.
Excellent. So before we finish up, I just want to ask you, right, your favourite Liverpool kit during that time was what?
Oh wow. Can I mention a few, but pick one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right, so 87, 88 home.
Yep.
I still have it.
Yep.
Is a ridiculously good jersey. Yeah. Let me think. I liked the candy one with the fleck on it, but the silver one.
The away one.
Yeah, I think it was 89, 90, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I liked that one. Then going through the years, I loved 95, 96, the green and white big square.
The quarters.
In Dublin at the time, that was impossible to get hold of. And I remember my ma getting it in Marathon Sports on Henry Street. She got the last one. And I am still forever grateful for it. I love that. I tell you what I loved. I think it was 93, 94, the yellow one with all the black liver boards all over it.
Yeah.
I loved that as well. And the recent ones from New Balance have been really good.
They've been brilliant, haven't they? Yeah, they've been absolutely cracking, the New Balance.
Yeah,
kids.
they have. But to pick one, do you know what? I'm gonna go with the green and white one.
Yeah, the 96 away. The FA Cup final one, was it?
Yes, the green and white one, the away one. The one that Fowler's famous for, getting the two at Old Trafford in. I just thought it was just something so different. Yeah. Chris Brack likes the black and gold from 94. Yeah, that's the one I'm speaking of. Yeah,
I remember the Crew. Remember the cream job they had in the early 90s as well, and they gave it the Crew.
Crew, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great kit as well. When you look back at them at the time, you're looking, we react to so many of these kits, and we're like, but when you look back at them, there was some cracking kits there, it's some great kits over the years. And before we go, your favourite player, and you mentioned Barnes, do you stand by Barnes as your favourite player that you've seen sort of in your lifetime?
Yeah, I do. I think there's so many ways you can have a favourite player. It could be the goals he scores. It could be he's mad. He could be a lunatic. He could be hard as nails. You know, people a bit older than me would love Souness. Loads of people. Gerrard, exceptional. An exceptional player. Suarez, the same. You look even now. Torres in his pomp was outrageous. But you look at Mane, Salah, Firmino now. You look at Virgil van Dijk. You look at Alisson. You look. There's a lot of players throughout the years. There's a lot of shite as well.
Yeah.
But the only one for me personally that comes close to John Barnes is Robbie Fowler.
Yeah.
Because Barnes just blew me mind, and Fowler was literally like just looking at the fella out down the street scoring goals at Anfield every other week, and the way he done it, and just the way he carried himself. He was dyeing his hair blonde. He was doing mad celebrations. He was turning his jersey backwards. He was just having the crack. But at the same time, he was playing for one of the biggest football teams in the world, and he was scoring hat-tricks in 3 and 4 minutes, and it was deadly. I loved him, but no, it's still John Barnes for me, and I think it always will be, because you know, like a lot of people say Dalglish, and that's an era thing as well. Barnes for me, I just remember being young and wanting to be John Barnes and Peter Beardsley.
First heroes.
Yeah.
We are formative years and they are heroes.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%. I'm the same myself. You look back at that time when you were developing your love for football and love for Liverpool, and these were the guys you looked up to. So it's hard to, replace that, they'll always be the heroes. They're the ones that you played in the street as, and I'm John Barnes, that way. So
and I think once Fowler left, I was not left, but Fowler after 96, 97, he's on a bit of a downward curve for me. But in 96, 97, I'm 15, and street football is being replaced by girls and drink cans, and I have managed to shake the cans. So calling yourself a certain player on the road or on the green or on the field kind of disappears around that time. But it's Barnes for me, but Fowler's up there. Listen, they're not giving us enough likes, but will we just give away another jersey anyway?
Why not? Because we're good like that.
All right. Well, before we go, we'll have a chat for another couple of minutes, but I'll tell you what, if I have my favourite Robbie Fowler game in my mind.
Yeah.
All right.
Go.
The first one to name my favourite Robbie Fowler game wins it. And all you need to do is, if you win it, just put in the comments below your email address and we'll get in contact with you. So I have it in my head. So whoever wants to say it, say it. That's about it. That's my Liverpool life, I think.
That's your Liverpool life, yeah. It's been interesting, and it has coincided, as we said, a lot of people around the same age will have. I was looking in the comments there, and people were saying the great teams in 78, 79, 80, 81, and that's before their time, but they're the sort of teams that like my dad would have been big into as well. And it's amazing, when you think back at the great teams Liverpool had. The paucity of it that we've had over the last few years, we really have been denied of the quality teams, but hopefully we're getting back there. Hopefully we're getting back, and it's just the heroes we can go through. Robbie Fowler, John Barnes. Is that your game? Have we got a winner?
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one at Old Trafford. I think he gets 2 that day. Yes, he does. We win it 3-1, I think, or 3-0. 3-0, don't we? And I think he gets a header in the first half, but he scores a goal in the second half that comes out from a corner, and he's on the corner of the box. He just takes on the chest, he lets go up in the air, comes down, and he literally places a loop and volley past, I think it's Bosnich goal, in off the post. And it was just everything about Fowler. He's in that jersey, I think, as well. It's at the end where Liverpool fans are, and it's that's my favourite game. There's loads of goals. There's the one against Villa where he actually does Steve Staunton with the little flick turn and smashes it. There's obviously the thing against Arsenal, sniffing the line against Everton. And someone says,
the Cup or the Cup Cup as well. Remember when he flicked it up and run on the volley, the great forgotten goal, that one. There's so many of them.
Yeah, but no, that's the one. So Owen Burke, Owen, I think he's on Twitter, Owen is.
Yeah,
Owen, just Owen, if you just give us a DM to the Trippers on thing. Have a look at the Tree Retro website. Let us know what jersey you want. Let us know what size you want. Send the details to us via DM, and I'll order that for you. That's no problem.
Brilliant, good stuff.
Sound derby.
So good, we're great like that. You know, even though we're only on 32 likes, but here, you know, we're just good like that. So listen, we'll wrap that up now, right? So Gav, thanks very much for coming on. This is a show that we really want to get going, and it's been really enjoyable talking about it with you, because as I've said, we've the same era, the same generation, and it brings back a lot of memories. And to everyone in the chat, you know, thanks for throwing the stuff in there, because it jogs a lot of memory, you know, and it's great to get that interaction. And it's a show that hopefully we'll do more of going forward, and we'll get other guys on to talk. But Gav, this has been your Liverpool life. Thank you very much for coming on, and we'll leave it at that.
Thanks a million. It's been deadly.
No worries. Take care, folks, and we'll be back again. I think tomorrow. We back tomorrow?
Yes, we are. We're back tomorrow with a preview of the Burnley game. I think it's me, you, and Jonathan Higgins, I think, is on with us tomorrow.
Brilliant. So we'll see us all then, folks. So listen, thanks a lot. Take care. Good night.